In the autumn of 2020, I sought solitude in the dense, fog-laden forests of the Pacific Northwest, specifically a remote cabin near Mount Hood, Oregon, USA. After a grueling year, I needed to disconnect. So I rented a small A-frame cabin nestled among towering firs, far from cell service. The air was crisp, heavy with pine and damp earth. Arriving at dusk, I unpacked my gear, lit a fire, and settled in, unaware of the eerie presence that would soon unravel my peace. The first night was quiet, save for the crackling fire and occasional hoot of an owl. I read by lamplight, savoring the isolation. Around midnight, a soft rustling came from outside, like leaves brushed by wind, but the air was still. Peering through the window, I saw only fog weaving through the trees. Then, a faint whisper, almost human, murmured my name from the darkness. I froze, rationalizing it as exhaustion. Morning brought clarity. I hiked the nearby trails, the forest alive with bird calls. But the cabin's charm faded as I noticed odd marks on the porch scratches, too deep for animals, etched in patterns. Locals at a nearby diner spoke of the whispering woods, old tales of lost hikers hearing voices. I laughed it off, blaming the marks on wear and tear. That evening, I built a fire outside, the flames dancing under a starless sky. The rustling returned, closer, circling the cabin. I called out, thinking it was wildlife, but silence answered. Then, the whisper came again clearer, saying, "Stay." My heart raced. I doused the fire and retreated inside, locking the door. Sleep was fitful, haunted by dreams of a shadowed figure weaving through trees. Waking at dawn, I found the window unlatched, fog seeping in. Outside, the scratches had multiplied, now circling the cabin's foundation. Panic crept in. I checked my phone, no signal. The forest felt alive, watching. I ventured to the village for supplies, seeking answers. An old ranger at the general store warned of a presence tied to the land, an entity born from forgotten tragedies, drawn to solitude. Back at the cabin, I found a leather-bound journal in a drawer, left by a previous renter. It described whispers, shadows, and a warning: don't answer the voice. Night fell, and the whispers grew louder, now a chorus murmuring my fears, regrets, failures. The shadow appeared outside, a vague form in the fog, pacing. I barricaded the door with a chair, heart pounding. The air turned cold, my breath visible indoors. The journal mentioned a hiker who vanished decades ago, his cries absorbed by the woods. Locals believed the forest fed on despair, manifesting as a shadow. I stayed awake, clutching a flashlight. At midnight, a knock, soft, deliberate, rattled the door. The whispers urged, "Open." I didn't. By morning, the knocks had stopped, but the shadow lingered outside. Closer, its form clearer, tall, eyeless, limbs unnaturally long. I avoided windows, but its presence seeped through walls, a weight in the air. The journal's last entry read, "It wants your fear." I planned to leave, but my car wouldn't start, battery dead, despite being new. The whispers now came from inside, echoing in the rafters. Shadows danced on walls, mimicking my movements. I burned sage, but the smoke curled into shapes, faces, pleading. Night 2 was worse. Knocks multiplied, shaking the cabin. The shadow pressed against windows, its form distorting the glass. Whispers became screams, naming my past sins. I clutched the journal, reading of a ritual: face the shadow, deny its power. I wasn't ready. Daylight offered no reprieve. The forest seemed to close in, trees leaning unnaturally. I found bones, small, animal-like, arranged in a circle near the cabin. The journal warned of offerings left to appease the entity. I packed to hike out, but fog thickened, disorienting me. Night 3, the climax hit. Knocks became pounding, windows cracking. The shadow entered through walls, not doors, tall, eyeless, whispering my failures. I faced it, shouting denial, clutching a fire poker. It lunged, cold claws grazing me. I swung, shattering a window. The entity screamed, dissolving into fog. I fled at dawn, hiking miles to the village. Locals nodded knowingly. The cabin was abandoned after my report. Now in a Portland apartment, I avoid forests. But last fall, leaves in my room formed a familiar circle. The whispers linger, soft, eternal. The bruise from its touch remains, cold to the bone. Online, I found stories of Mount Hood's shadow, a spirit of a betrayed hiker, feeding on fear. I burned the journal, but the whispers call at night, urging me back to the woods. It was the spring of 2023, in the quiet, fog-laden town of Ravens Hollow, nestled in the misty forests of western Oregon, USA. I'd bought an old farmhouse on the outskirts, a charming but weathered 19th century home with creaky floors and faded wallpaper. Seeking peace after a hectic career in Portland, the realtor hinted at its past empty for years after a family moved away, but I dismissed it as small-town lore. During my first week, while poking around the basement, I spotted a thin crack in the stone wall, hidden behind dusty shelves. Prying with a crowbar, I revealed a rusted, concealed door, unmarked on the house plans. The door creaked open to a small, dark room. My flashlight lit up shelves of cloudy glass jars, their contents murky, maybe old preserves. The air was heavy, stale, with a faint coppery smell. A rickety table held brittle papers, scribbled with words like offering and bound. I chuckled, thinking it was just odd history, but a chill settled in my chest. The room felt alive, watchful. That night, sleep evaded me. The house groaned louder than usual, as if restless. At midnight, a soft scratching sounded from the basement, steady and deliberate. Knife in hand, I crept down, pulse racing. The hidden door was slightly open, impossible. I'd secured it. Inside, the jars seemed to pulse faintly, their contents shifting. I slammed it shut, shoving a heavy box against it, blaming rodents. Morning brought thick fog, muffling the world. I stayed upstairs, sanding floors, ignoring the basement. But my hammer vanished, later found on the porch. By dusk, a low hum vibrated through the house, like a distant hymn. Checking below, the box was shifted. The door shut tight. I nailed it closed, hands trembling. At the town library, I found records of a 1920s group living here, conducting rituals in a sealed chamber to appease the keeper. The family's departure was abrupt, linked to a failed rite. Back home, the hum grew, laced with whispers too faint to catch. I boarded up the basement trapdoor, heart heavy. Night came, and the whispers formed my name, faint but clear, from below. The trapdoor's boards rattled, as if nudged from beneath. A sour smell, rotting leaves and iron seeped up. I lit incense, but it flickered erratically, casting shadows that twisted against the walls. I stayed awake, flashlight clutched, hearing soft thumps circling outside. Through a window, only fog was visible, but the yard's gravel crunched under unseen steps. The whispers sharpened. Open, release. The hidden door downstairs felt warm, vibrating subtly. I stopped leaving, deliveries sustained me. The hum became a drone, shaking mirrors. A book fell open in the study, revealing a journal I'd missed, notes on the keeper, a presence bound by blood, craving freedom. The family tried to seal it. They vanished instead. The drone turned to growls, deep and primal, from below. The nailed door bulged, wood cracking. The stench, rotting flesh now choked me. I taped vents, but the jar's contents moved, forming shapes like hands pressing against glass. A local historian refused to visit, citing tainted ground. Online threads whispered of a devourer in the house, never fully banished. That night, growls spoke. Blood. Yours. The trapdoor's board splintered, furniture sliding. I gripped a shovel, ready. Midnight brought chaos. The trapdoor exploded, a shadow surging out a writhing void, eyes glinting within. It slithered upstairs, cold and heavy. My shovel swung uselessly, chilling me. Jars burst, liquid pooling, forming claw-like tendrils. It spoke my deepest fears: loss, failure in a voice of torment. Tendrils grabbed me, burning cold. The journal's warning echoed. Firebinds. I poured lamp oil, lit a match. Flames roared, consuming the shadow with an unearthly scream, shaking the house. I fled as the fire spread. Firefighters blamed old wiring. I relocated to a city apartment, but the scars frostbite-like persist. Unpacking, I found a small jar, liquid swirling. I smashed it, but whispers linger at night, calling from the dark. Raven's Hollow shuns the sight. They know the truth. The keeper, tied to blood, waits for another door to open. I burn incense, but shadows move in my apartment, patient, watching. Last night, scratching came from under my bed, faint but unmistakable. I haven't looked. The hum returns low, urging me to seek what's hidden. I fear I brought it with me. It was the autumn of 1987, in a sleepy town called Maplewood, tucked away in the rolling hills of rural Vermont. USA, the leaves turned fiery shades of red and orange, carpeting the ground like a blanket of blood. My family had lived in an old colonial house on the edge of the woods for generations, and as a 10-year-old boy, I loved playing in the fallen leaves, raking them into piles and jumping in. But that year, the wind carried something strange, a soft rustling that sounded almost like whispers. At first, I thought it was just the breeze through the branches, but as days shortened, the sound grew clearer, more insistent, echoing in my ears long after I came inside. The whispers started innocently enough. I'd be outside after school, kicking through the leaves, and hear faint murmurs, like distant conversations. Play ... here. They seemed to say. I laughed it off, telling my parents about the talking wind. They smiled, calling it my imagination fueled by too many ghost stories from Grandpa. The town was full of folklore, old tales of settlers lost in the woods, their spirits wandering with the fall winds. But as nights grew colder, the whispers followed me indoors, seeping through cracked windows, keeping me awake. One evening, as dusk fell early, I ventured deeper into the woods behind our house. The path was overgrown, leaves crunching underfoot. The whispers grew louder, guiding me like a siren song. Come ... closer ... I found a clearing with a gnarled tree stump, surrounded by a circle of dead leaves that swirled unnaturally, as if stirred by invisible hands. My heart raced. I ran home, but that night, dreams came, twisted visions of shadowy figures rustling through foliage, their voices calling my name. School friends shared similar stories. Tommy said he heard giggles in the leaf piles. Sarah claimed words like hide and seek. We laughed nervously, but the unease spread. At home, leaves appeared inside on my bed, in my drawers, dry and brittle, as if carried by the whispers. My parents blamed open windows, but I knew better. The murmurs evolved, revealing secrets. Mommy's sad. Daddy's lying. Things only I knew, buried deep. I confided in Grandpa, who lived with us. His eyes darkened. He spoke of the Whispering Grove, a cursed spot in the woods where settlers had buried something evil during a harsh fall famine. The leaves remember, he warned. They carry the voices of the forgotten. That night, the whispers turned personal. We know what you did. The broken vase. A childish secret I'd hidden. Fear gripped me. I nailed my window shut. The air grew heavier, the fog thicker, muffling sounds except the rustles. Outside, leaves piled unnaturally against doors, as if trying to enter. Inside, scratches joined the whispers, faint nails on wood. I barricaded my room, but dreams intensified. I was buried in leaves, voices suffocating me with accusations. Waking, I'd find leaf fragments in my sheets, smelling of decay. Desperation drove me back to the woods with Grandpa's old lantern. The path felt alive, branches snagging my clothes like fingers. In the clearing, the stump hummed, leaves whirling in a vortex. Whispers surrounded me. Join us. Play forever. I dug at the stump's base, unearthing a small rusted box. Inside, faded letter-sithers' confessions of a dark pact for survival, sealing a spirit in the grove. The whispers swelled into a chorus, revealing horrors. The spirit was a child, sacrificed in the famine, its voice trapped in the leaves, luring others to share its loneliness. It knew my fears because it fed on them. Leaves lashed at me like whips. I fled, box in hand, but tendrils of foliage pursued, rustling madly. Home was no sanctuary. Leaves invaded through cracks, piling in corners, whispering my sins. My parents heard nothing, thinking me ill. Grandpa nodded grimly. Burn the box, break the pact. But the spirit fought. Doors slammed, windows rattled. The house shook as if alive, leaves forming shapes on the floor, like tiny hands reaching. Midnight climax came. The whispers roared, "You're ours." Leaves erupted from vents, swirling into a figure, a spectral child, eyes hollow, mouth open in a silent scream. It lunged, cold breath stealing my warmth, visions of eternal burial in foliage flooding my mind. Grandpa thrust the box into the fireplace. I lit it. Flames consumed the papers, the figure wailing as leaves ignited, dissolving into ash. The house stilled, whispers fading to silence. We moved soon after, but scars remained, nightmares of rustling leaves. Years later, in a city apartment, fall winds bring faint murmurs. I avoid parks in autumn. The leaves remember, and they're patient. Researching as an adult, I found records. The famine was real. A child missing, whispers in folklore. The grove is avoided. Hikers report voices. I burned replicas of the letters, but last fall, a leaf appeared on my pillow, dry and whispering my name. The terror never fully left. Winds carry echoes. Dreams bury me again. I warn others. Listen to the leaves. They hold secrets, and once they know yours, they never forget. Now in quiet moments, I hear them still soft, insistent, calling from the past. The whispering leaves of Maplewood aren't gone. They're just waiting for the next fall.